we are joined by Andy from Ist Ist. How you doing, mate?
All good. As well as anyone's doing in the
Well, as can be
in the
expected in the
situation.
circumstances.
Yeah. I think there's a sliding scale of how well people are doing, aren't they? And it's all relative to the situation we find ourselves in.
The reason we've got you on today is COVID related again as well, that we were planning to come and speak to you guys as part of your UK tour.
Yeah.
Obviously that's not happening at the moment. We wanted to talk about architecture.
Yes.
But not in the buildings and gables kind of way. We're talking purely music. You guys have got a new album, a debut album that drops next Friday, which is the 1st of May. How hard has it been doing an album release and trying to promote an album when you can't sort of tour off the back of it and when you can't even get together to do normal press things that you do?
Do you know what? I think if we'd have announced it a month or so later, it might have been a bit more difficult than we've found it, because we announced it on the 28th of January, and the way we've been doing the release, as you'll have seen, is sort of track by track. So we started when we announced the album, we've done it in track order as well. So we've been sort of every couple of weeks there's been a new track coming out, and I think if we'd have announced it a little bit later than we did, and we weren't necessarily doing this kind of unique way of doing it, I think we'd have found it really difficult, because you see a lot of bands, they'll announce the album, maybe do 2-3 singles from it, release it, and then within a couple of days they'll go out on tour, and that's kind of the tried and tested format. So I think we've been relatively lucky in the sense that we announced it when we did, but the not being able to tour it side of it is, what can you do? The only thing is every other band's in the same situation, aren't they? But I suppose not every band's got a debut album coming out. But
yeah, that's the difference.
Do you know what? As philosophical as it sounds, there's bigger things going on, isn't there?
The way that you'd planned on releasing the album, regardless of what's going on, has actually kind of worked in your favour.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
We mentioned the name, so it's called Architecture. Yeah. What's behind the name?
It's actually strangely, even though there's a like a architectural structure on the front cover, it mainly relates to sort of the architecture of the mind. I don't write the lyrics. Adam, our singer, does all the lyrics, but there's a line in one of the songs that says the architecture of your mind is pure. And that's where we took the title from. Then it so happened that it was first album beginning with the first letter of the alphabet, which was quite nice. I don't think we'll sort of like go B.
Yeah, there's not going to be a B. Yeah.
No, I don't.
Putting yourselves to 26 albums.
Yeah, I mean, even the sort of worst record deals you hear of would never hint at 26 albums, would they? But no, it's one of those things where it's not a concept album or anything like that, but a lot of the songs tend to focus about the sort of people's mind and people's relationships and sort of thoughts and emotions and things like that. And it was just a line from one of the songs that was nice, and it just seemed to fit, really.
That's interesting said, because it was one of the questions I was going to ask you is was it supposed to be a concept album? And the reason I kind of got that in my head was the way you decided to sort of structure the album, build the album, the way that you were releasing each track, almost like building blocks. Yeah. Therefore, architecture. That's how I perceived it. Right. It was like you were building this sort of overarching theme.
I suppose that's a classic case of it's sort of open to interpretation, isn't it? Really, and sometimes, we're quite not set in our ways as an artist, but we're quite determined in the way that we release music and the way that our releases look and the artwork and everything. But at the same time, there's still a nice element of people being able to interpret like that. So we'd never really seen it like that. But no, I quite like the thought of that now. I think I might mention that in other interviews. Actually,
feel free to steal it. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. I believe you've got the plan is that all 10 tracks on the album will be singles in their own right. Will have an accompanying video in their own right as well. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Part of the reason we wanted to do that was because, one, I've never really seen anyone else do it, and two, you'll know as sort of a music fan, a lot of the time when you listen to an album, when you put it on for the first time, a lot of the time, your favourite song from it isn't one of the singles. You know, the other one's sort of buried somewhere, maybe in the later track listing or something. Especially with the way modern music now is, that they seem to sort of top load albums, and you put your 3 hits at the top, and then it sort of gets progressively worse or non sort of mainstream.
Fades out. A lot of them fizzle and fade out.
Whereas ours doesn't necessarily do that. But even still, we wanted each song to sort of have its kind of time in the spotlight and it get its own video. We've been doing the artwork prints with each one, just because it was something different to do, but at the same time it gives each track the focus. Because we've released a couple of EPs on vinyl before, and we're all sort of big physical music fans. And when we put this album together, the track listing was, we wanted it to flow as 10 songs in a row, but then we also wanted each side of the record to kind of be like a mini album in itself. So even if you listen to side B first, it'd have a nice start, middle and end.
Yeah.
And even if you're listening to it in sort of B to A order, it'd still sort of work as an album. And that was important. And then again, that kind of informed the way in which we decided to release it, which was track by track, not singling one song out for preferential treatment as such.
Yeah, and the fact that fans are certainly going to get a lot more bang for their buck, because by the end of this, if they are sort of collecting all, not just the album, but collecting all the singles as well, and also tying that together with the music videos, you've got a real solid sort of compendium of work, which is a great way of doing it. It's like I say, it's not something that I've seen done before.
No, and it's one of them. Sometimes you see the way in which music's released and everything's digital, and maybe you get a CD out of it or something. I mean, there's still a lot of bands releasing on vinyl, but nowhere near as much as they used to be, and it's just nice to sort of have that collection.
It is your debut album. Now, you guys got together, I believe, in 2014. So it's been a slow burn to get to this point. Is that because that you were never quite happy with the volume of work that you had to put to an album? Or is it because you wanted it to be a standalone project? Or what's taken the 6 years to get to debut album?
I don't think the volume of songs has ever been a problem, because we're not prolific in the sense that we've got hundreds and hundreds of tracks, but we've always had in our minds that just because you maybe got sort of 10 songs, 12 songs, doesn't mean you've got an album. You might have an album worth of music, you might have enough to make an album, but it's got to work as that sort of coherent project and that coherent listen. Where in the past, and live's very different, and you don't have to play the songs in order that you would do on a record, and the live set works very different. And we've always had quite a lot of interchangeable songs in the live set, but never quite had that maybe core group of 10 songs that you're going, that's the album right there. That's
your collective,
and that's why when we've done EPs, there might be 5 or 6 songs that you're going, they all work together, and that they form the EPs. But you might think, well, why didn't you just write 4 more songs? And you're going, because you can be in different spaces in different times in your sort of career as a musician or artist, and you kind of just know when the time's right. And we got to a stage early last year where we were writing quite a lot when we were touring, and we had quite a lot of new songs coming through, and that was the point really where we didn't really even have a massive discussion about it. I think everyone's kind of acknowledged, we're going, I think it's time to go and record the album. I think this feels right as that group of songs that'll make up the record.
There's so many different shades of it. The shades of Joy Division, of Interpol. I would even go so far as saying there's even some pushing it, but Depeche Mode, and even pushing it further, some Sisters of Mercy in there as well. And yet you still made it sound like you, if that makes any sense.
For me, there's a distinct difference between influenced by and then sounds like. And people can sometimes blur the lines of that, and you're going, it's difficult, when you're a kid growing up, learning an instrument, and you listen to certain types of music. It's very difficult to not be influenced by that. That just happens. And I think sort of maybe part of the reason it still sounds relatively unique, or at least I think it does, is there's a sort of a real mix of influences in there as well. But then there's, if you're going to draw like a Venn diagram of the 4 of us, our influences, there'd be that crossover in the middle that would
Yeah.
be things like Joy Division and Interpol and things like that. You know, maybe a bit of Bauhaus and those sort of things. There'd be that crossover, but then there's plenty sort of on the peripheries where we bring a lot of maybe different things to it. You know, Adam, our singer, and Matt, our keyboardist and second guitarist, are into quite a lot of sort of ambient and electronic things, and that's where you might get some of these sort of drum machines and soundscapes from, whereas me and Joel might be a bit more sort of classic rock and roll kind of people.
Which is great, isn't it? To be able to have all four courses at the back, everyone sort of putting their own sort of spin and their own sort of twist on it. There seems to be something going on with Manchester and the music coming out of there at the moment, but it's kind of almost like there's a new wave coming out, if that makes any sense. Think about yourselves, think about Slow Readers Club. There seems to be a very distinct Manchester sound regrowing at the moment. Is that fair to say?
I think so. Yeah. Do you know what? I think for a lot of the time, it's never really gone away. It might have gone in waves, but there's always been some level of that there. It's maybe just what people are sort of tuned into at the moment, really.
We mentioned that you guys have been together since 2014, so you know that, and you've grown a fan base and a real strong fan base from that time. That it's kind of stuck with you through everything, and you're adding more people into that mix all the time. Yeah. That seems to have come about with you guys doing everything your own way. You're a very DIY band. Everything you've grown has been sort of organic, and you've got a very strong creative control on the way you want to come across, the way you want to sound, even down to your artwork and things like that. Is that important that, depending on the success of the album, if sort of people came sort of looking and scouting you out, that you would always want that level of creative control? Or
I think the way that I and we as a band would look at that is, if there was going to be someone, I mean, and we are currently working with a management team behind the scenes who are doing a really solid job with us. We're not on a label. The record label it's released on is our own label as such.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if someone was going to come knocking, there'd have to be that discussion that you'd want them to sign you on the strength of what you already have, as opposed to we're going to sign them as a project and we're going to turn them into the next big boy band or something like that, which for obvious reasons never going to happen. But just as an example, I would want, and we would want, someone to approach us with some sort of, say, offer or discussion around the fact that, being, what you're doing is great, we just want to make it bigger and better. But yeah, we'd still always want to retain some element of that control. Everything that we've done so far has always gone a little bit bigger each time. You know, when we've done the EPs, each time they've sold a few more copies and we've got more copies pressed and printed. Albums sold more than both the EPs put together. So we're just on a nice sort of steady path, which kind of makes me think we're doing the right thing. So yeah, if there ever was going to be a label involved or someone backing it financially, there'd still have to be that understanding that we're going to control a lot of things. Always, you know, that doesn't mean we're not happy to take an advice on board, because we do that anyway as it is. But ultimately, we still want to be the decision makers with it, yeah.
What would represent success for the album for you?
I'm not sort of putting my feet up and saying everything's been amazing and we couldn't have asked for better, because you can always want better and always push for better. But the sort of the pre-sale numbers that we've had, the response it's got, I think where we're at now is, I'd take that as a success. If you'd have offered it when we were starting out the band, and you know, if you'd have said to us 4.5 years ago, this is the sort of what your debut album's going to be, and this is what it's going to sound like, this is how many people are going to buy it, these are the sort of size venues you'll be playing on tour when we eventually get out on there. No, we're pretty happy with that.
So ticking those boxes off really pretty much already then. In that case.
Because the way that we've always wanted it to be is, you know, if you're going to go boom overnight, you've got to expect a sheer drop on the other side. If you've got a rapid ascent, you pretty much got to sign up to there being a descent as well. Whereas if we've been sort of slowly getting a bit bigger, accumulating, you know, really hardcore fans along the way, they're going to stick with us. The people that are our fans today are going to be our fans tomorrow for the most part. So I think we've done it the right way, and the way that I look at it, we're really happy with it. You can always ask for more. You know, you could go, yeah, we want another 200 sales or whatever, but for what, really? If it's just purely for the money side of things, I'm not really interested in it. No, I think where we're at's good. You know, when you launch an album back in January, people are going, oh, I'll just buy it later down the line because it's not out till May. But it starts to get about a bit real around that.
You mentioned the tour. Obviously, the initial dates went by the wayside. Is there any news on terms of rescheduled dates?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's still got to be up in there somewhat, but
yeah, let me tell you when they are now. Yeah, but we're looking at October and one date in November. So Bristol, Louisiana is the 17th of October, that's a Saturday. First date's the 2nd of October, which is at Academy 2 in Manchester, which is the first one. So yeah, we've got 8 dates, 7 of which are in October, 1 of which in November. So just fingers crossed for that, really.
So in lieu of the tour not currently taking place as scheduled in the next month, how are you guys staying connected with each other and also with the fan base at the moment?
Our WhatsApp chat, like I'm looking at our WhatsApp chat now, and I've got 36 unread messages. So yeah, WhatsApp. We've actually, do you know what? Around this time, in the last few weeks leading up to around tour, we'd just been like full steam ahead tour rehearsals. But we've actually been writing quite a bit more because we're just sort of picking ideas around in isolation. We've all got the facility to record things at home. So one of us has maybe been sending an idea to the other, and then, someone's putting a drum beat on it, who's putting keyboards on it, putting a bit of vocals over it. Because when we can eventually sort of reconvene and get rehearsing, we'll be rehearsing for tour, but we might have 5, 6, 7 ideas that we can go, right, we'll take them into the room as well.
It seems lockdown has been a bit of a blessing in disguise for creative types, because you don't normally get the luxury of pausing to be able to do things like that. And so by the time the people I've seen that aren't struggling are people that are artists of various descriptions that seem to be using it is a great time to sort of pen ideas down and things.
No, I agree with that. I'm not saying like we're going to come out of this with album 2, but we'll probably, strangely, would be further along in terms of whatever the writing process looks like than we would have been otherwise. Because like I say, you just kind of just flick a switch and you just go to tour mode, and then it's rehearse the set, go and gig it. And then after tour, you all want a break from each other for like a couple of weeks or something. And that's when you start writing again. Whereas now, we've not got the tour, made our peace with that. We'll just try and write some stuff.
Is merchandise still fairly, obviously, seems to be quite important to a lot of the bands at the moment? One, where can people get hold of the merchandise? And 2, is there anything sort of specific that was sort of related to the album that's going to be floating around now?
Yes. Our website is just Ist Music, ististmusic.com. That's got all the copies of the album you can get on there. All the merch. We've actually got some new stuff coming out. So we've got hoodies, we've got T-shirts, mugs. Even mugs was things people have been asking for. I never thought anyone would want a mug with our logo on. And,
the British, you're always going to do well with the British and mugs.
Tea drinkers, and record player slip mats we've got. So in the next day or 2, we'll be putting them up. But that's our usual place: T-shirts, records, everything like that on there.
Excellent. And where can people find you on social media? So you've got the website. Are you on Instagram and Facebook?
Yeah, everything is sort of / or at Ist Ist Music.
Okay. Appreciate the time, Andy. It's been great speaking to you. Shame it obviously wasn't with the gig off the back of it, but it means that we've got the album. It splits it in 2, actually, doesn't it? We've got the album launch. And we've got the gig later in the year too.
Yeah, we can do this again anyway when this is no longer the new normal.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and we'll get this out and across as many platforms pre the album coming out next Friday as we possibly can for you.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Andy. Thank you very much.
Nice one. Thanks.